I'm Count Gore DeVol, and welcome to my dungeon.
Who says television is too slick, polished, or even dull?
Hi. I'm Gore DeVol, in case you didn't recognize.
Well, certainly not Count Gore DeVol, who pops up once a week on a local independent station hosting something called Creature Feature. Out of makeup, the Count is really Dick Dyszel, a mild-mannered sort who got into the vampire business in Kentucky when a small station was about to go on the air.
Actually, it was funny. About 3 a.m. in the morning, we were watching some film intros for movies, and we were all slap happy as it was. And the general manager was looking at this thing, and it said, "Night of Terror." And he said, "That's what we need. We need a horror movie with a host." And I go, "Spell, that's if you need the horror movie with the host." And he said, "You're hired."
Hi, I'm Dick Dyszel, and I know you're maybe disappointed that Count Gore DeVol, who's over my shoulder, isn't here, but you know, this is the COVID era. We haven't been able to get out and about together with a lot of friends in real life, so we're doing this virtually. And you know, I go back to when I first came to Washington, D.C. back in the early 70s. We came up with the Count in 73 and put him on the air, and we had a lot of fun with that. But I soon realized that you know, Channel 20 was an independent. Everyone else was a network station, and we were kind of the low guy on the totem pole, and no one gave us much credit until one day, this guy from Channel 4, the NBC, said, "I'm going to come over and interview you." And I go, "Well, wait a second, with that?" And who showed up at my doorstep, or actually at the edge of my coffin? But Arch Campbell.
And here we are, 45 years later, 46 years later.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. I used to love watching your show. Number one, it brought back my childhood because I grew up watching Shock Theater on Channel 5 in San Antonio. And, you know, they had this great open, tired of the everyday routine, ever want to get away from it all, then prepare yourself for a shock. Then this hairy arm would come in and pull the slide back, and you'd see a castle, and then the host would come on. And that's, I became a movie critic and reviewed movies for 45 years. And that's where I learned to love the movies, watching the great classics on Shock Theater. And then I moved to Washington, and there your show was. And the movies, not so good.
Oh, come on.
These weren't, you were beyond the classics.
Well,
but the stuff you did leading into them was just so good. And I had a boss, the guy that hired me was a guy named Bruce McDonald. And it was 1975. Among other things, Bruce was really an unusual boss in that he smoked a lot of marijuana. He did. One of the cameramen was his contact for grass. And every weekend, he was high as a kite the entire weekend. And he discovered your show. And he told me to start watching it. Well, I'd have a few drinks and start watching you. And I loved what you were doing. And my boss said, "You got to do something on this guy. He's just great." And the guy I worked for had spent a lot of time in LA. So I think he really enjoyed your showmanship.
Dyszel's Kentucky vampire was good enough to land him in Washington. To get into character, Dick dons his high school tux, loads up with makeup, and within a half hour changes from television announcer to half-witted, ad-libbing vampire.
This is Count Gore DeVol at Channel 20 televisions, and We're playing the movie The House of Frankenstein tonight, and I'm trying to talk to the current heir of the House of Frankenstein.
Gore's been at it nearly 3 years. That's long enough to wear out one coffin.
You know, they aren't constructed to be made to get in and out of a lot. You know, it's usually a one-way trip. You get in and close the lid, and that's it. And when you open the lid a lot, you know, the lid tends to fall off. There's very, very weak hinges on these things.
As I was trying to say, we're placing this phone call long distance to you.
You have the applause ready. Hold the light.
The segments for Creature Feature are taped every 4 weeks in sessions that are as wild off the air as on.
Very rarely will we retape something. If something goes wrong, fine. It's done as live as much as possible. There's been too many times where things have been taped, and you say, well, let's do it over again, and the first one was better. So I just like, let's go back to the old days when television was live. Do it that way, even though we're putting it on tape.
Ah, the Fiend picks up a -2.5.
I very rarely see the film ahead of time, and I just have to go by the storylines. We just take it from there and try to come up with different ways of looking at it. Like we're going to do one thing here. The movie's called Fiend Without a Face, and it's this fiend. This fiendish brain is attacking these Air Force stations in Canada. And I figured, what can we do with this? Because it's a one-man show. I said, how can we do this? So I decided that I was going to have I built an audio meter somewhat similar to Arthur Godfrey's days of applause and so forth, and we're going to have a cheering contest between those favoring the Air Force and those favoring the Fiend to see who should win. You have to sit down and think weird.
Movie on Creature Feature. Let's hear, how would you rate tonight's movie?
I once asked my program director, very early, probably about 75,
Yeah.
I said, Jim, who's my audience? I mean, all I see are these cameras. Who's my audience? And he kicked back in his chair. He was from Texas. Put his feet on the desk. See the cowboy boots? He took a drag of a cigarette. So, Dick, your audience is half female and half stoned.
Well, that was the case with my boss. He was stoned out of his mind. He was a great boss. Those were great days in the mid-'70s at NBC, if you can imagine. But he loved what you were doing. And so I started watching, and I loved it. And what I really loved about your show was the off-camera laughter. You know, I think that's the greatest thing any production can provide is the camera crew and the people in the studio laughing at what's going on in front of the camera. It brings us who are at home watching, it brings us in. And it took me years, but finally I was able, toward the end of my career, which is now buried deeper than Dracula's grave. I went for that same kind of off-camera laugh, and that made your show so much fun to watch.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I mean, it made it particularly when I was first starting out, because I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, it was a matter of if I could get a reaction from the folk in the studio, then obviously I must be doing something right. So it was that was important. That was important to me. You know, it was like, okay, come on.
Right. It's the response, because otherwise it's just, you're just talking to a camera.
I mean,
we are.
Like that.
I used to love to, in the studio, just turn off camera. How's this going over? Is this working? Yeah. And you would hear something over there. I mean, you need that reaction. And that was one of the things you had at the beginning. Also, there was an element of sex to your show. Every year, you'd have these penthouse pets on there. Plus, I got to know and interviewed several of your interns. They used to say all sorts of stuff would go on. And people would take turns getting into the coffin.
Well, why not? Hey, you got into the coffin.
I got into the coffin.
And I put that lid on you.
Where'd you get that coffin anyway?
Actually, that was my second one.
Oh.
And the first one was a pine box. It was covered, in the gray felt.
Yeah.
The problem with those boxes is they have these really chintzy hinges. They're designed to open, close, bury. They're not. You do that, and they go whack. So after about a year and a half, that we kept new hinges on. They finally said, we need a new coffin, we'll get a metal one. I can't afford it. I don't have a budget for a metal one. Well, our general manager said, we'll get you one. So I went to these funeral homes, and someone said, well, I have a friend who owns a funeral home in DC, and we can go look at the coffins. I'm looking at these coffins, and it's like $2,000, $1,500.
Yes, yeah.
Look at the lowest one, $1,200. I don't have a budget for that. I have to go to petty cash to get $5 for dry ice. Come on, guys. And that's when I found out how much markup there was on the coffins.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that black.
They sold you on wholesale.
The black coffin I had, it retailed for $1,400. The manufacturer suggested list price was $125.
Now that's a horror show. The guy I grew up watching, and his moniker was the host on Shock Theater. He was most famous as Captain Gus. And when I was about 15, my father was selling houses, and they hired Captain Gus to come out and sign autographs. And he comes out there, and I go over to Captain Gus, and I say, well, I enjoy your kids' show, but I really enjoy you on Shock Theater. And he had a red wig on and a sailor suit and all this stuff. And I think I kind of shocked him that I was talking about his horror show when he was there as the kids' host. And he said, well, young man, we enjoy doing both of them. And kind of dismissed me. And it was, kind of a disappointment.
Little history lesson for those of you who are younger than me in this town. Creature Feature was a fixture on local television during the 70s and the 80s.
Okay, well, did you know the man who played Count Gore DeVol is still at it? Arch Campbell knew that. He recently caught up with him.
Well, not only that, the guy is big now. He's in his own film. This weekend, the American Film Institute premiered a documentary about the early days of local TV when performers did a little bit of everything at a station. Every Other Day is Halloween answers the question, whatever happened to the guy who played Bozo, Captain 20, and Count Gore DeVol on Creature Feature?
Good evening.
Creature Feature turned mild-mannered TV announcer Dick Dyszel into a Washington star. As Count Gore DeVol on Channel 20, he introduced bad horror movies with skits and late-night comedy.
First year, it took us a little bit to build up in 73. 74, we hit our stride, and we started a little blip in the ratings. 75, we owned the Saturday Night Live.
Hey, do they have rain delays in football?
Of course they don't have rain delays.
Well, good!
The Count drew a countercultural audience.
Half female, half stoned.
Dyszel formed a one-man theater company. He played Bozo, Captain 20. He even read the news. But times changed. The station sold. You know the rest. Now those days return in the documentary Every Other Day is Halloween.
People remember it, and they remember it fondly. And what else can you ask for?
And Creature Feature lives on in Dick Dyszel's basement, where he webcasts at countgore.com. You can't keep a good vampire down, not even if you drive a stake through his heart. Yes, he does the show from his basement now. The screening went so well Saturday night that the AFI says they'll run it again in October, and Every Other Day is Halloween has been accepted by the Comic-Con Film Festival in San Diego. That's a big deal. And one quick note, Transformers 2 made $201 million in 5 days, second only to The Dark Knight.
Wow.
But behind Every Other Night is Halloween in my heart. Those were great days.
That's hilarious.
That was so much fun. I love the special effects.
On that note, though, I'm going to ask you, can you stick around for a little bit? I wanted to talk to some other friends, and I'll reconnect and talk about the Arch Campbell show. And
some of the people you're going to talk to are people that I am very interested in. So please give them my best.
I certainly will. Hang in there, Arch. We'll be back to you. Well, you know, around the turn of the century, this century, the internet was finally people were starting to pay attention to it. The bandwidth was getting big enough, and pretty soon horror hosts started doing something really strange. We started discovering each other and how we were doing that, because before that, a lot of times we didn't know who we were, what they were doing at some place. And we're going to meet right now a couple of the guys who I met very early, and that is from Pensacola, Mike Ensley, who does Baron Mondo Con Doren, and then from the Nashville area, Larry Underwood, who does Dr. Gangrene. Let's go to Florida. Okay, Mike, what inspired you to get started in this horror hosting thing?
Well, I was always interested in horror hosting. Growing up, we didn't really have a host here in Florida, in Pensacola. I think the closest was probably Dr. Paul Bearer down in the Tampa area, but I didn't know about him at that time. I did know about Zachary and Elvira, obviously, because I'd read Famous Monsters of Filmland. But starting in around that time you were talking about, the late 90s, early 2000s, I started doing some research on horror hosts, and I discovered Count Gore's weekly web program, and used to go there every week and check everything out, and got very inspired by that. And so you were a huge influence on us, and that's still reflected in our show today because you're on our set. We have a picture, an autographed photo of you on our set that everybody can see. So yeah, Count Gore was a huge influence on us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Do you like board games?
Not really.
Oh, of course you do. Everyone does. So let's play everyone's favorite board game, Ed Wood's Who Killed Inspector Clay? Yes, Inspector Clay is dead, murdered, and somebody's responsible. It's your job to find out who done it as you wander between scenes on the game board that make little to no sense. It'll be day 1 minute and night 1 minute as you try to win the game. You and your family will be having fun before you can say,
Medical examiner been around yet?
Who Killed Inspector Clay comes with all sorts of bonus features. You'll get character pieces. You'll get a 6-sided die. You'll get plenty of stuff.
Does it come with detailed rules?
Oh, no, this is by Ed Wood. Just make it up as you go along. I think it was the younger, taller vampire. Hey, how did the vampire become younger and taller between scenes?
That's just how Ed Wood works. Children of all ages will love Ed Wood's Who Killed Inspector Clay. Available where all board games, hairnets, canned hams, and 100-proof liquors are sold.
Talk about your character itself. And I know you have probably one of the most colorful characters.
Yeah, I wear a red suit and a tie, and the Baron is sort of a middle management in hell. He's a demon, but he his big triumph was he introduced new Coke to the world. That was kind of his backstory. And we started out the show just trying to foist these horrible movies on people, but as it's evolved, and we've now we're on PBS. We're on 9 different markets with PBS across the Southeast, and then mainly Florida and Tennessee. We developed this idea that when we went into the station to talk to them about sets and what we were going to construct, and I just saw this old equipment, and I said, well, what if we're just stuck in Hell's TV station? It's defunct TV station, and so now we just we have to show these horrible movies to people, and then of course we do our shtick and interact with them. But so yeah, that's kind of the setup. Of course, El Sapo is a failed Mexican wrestler. I've taken him on as my manservant, and then we have a third character, Lemmy Cruz, who doesn't actually speak, but he's a werewolf. We started in 2001, in October of 2001, which was a strange time to start. Right after 9/11, it was very strange. The whole world felt kind of weird and out of sorts, and we just wanted to put something out there that people would enjoy. And we've done it. We did it for probably 7 or 8 years on leased access, where we bought and paid for commercials. We sold the commercials on our show. We produced them. Then we moved to a public access station through the university and did that for another probably 8 years or so. And then when PBS decided they were going to launch their PBS Nerd Initiative, which is what they called it, they started showing Doctor Who and Mystery Science Theater 3000 on Saturday nights. When Mystery Science Theater went away, they were looking for something new. And so they came to us and said, how would you feel about producing your show for PBS? And we said, well, you don't have to ask us twice. Let's get in there and do that now. So yeah, so we've done 2 seasons, 2 13-episode seasons with them. We're looking to do our 3rd next year. Obviously, COVID threw kind of a monkey wrench in this year's taping because we couldn't get in the studio to shoot, and then everything's backed up. But we are filming a new Halloween special this year, and for the first time, it will air on Halloween night on all of our affiliates. So all 9 markets that we're in, it will air that night.
Excellent. Well, you mentioned that you're on a lot of stations in Florida and also Tennessee, which brings us to our other friend here, and that's Larry Underwood, who plays Dr. Gangrene. And Larry, you're based in the Nashville area, right?
That's correct. Nashville native, born and raised here.
Wow. Well, tell us about how you got started in this nefarious thing called hosting.
Moved to Hendersonville, Tennessee, met a guy who had a cable access show, kind of talked me into doing this. So I got together with my former comic book partner and I said, let's do this thing. This was in 1999. So we started doing the show. Really, the only kind of show I wanted to do was this, a horror host show. For whatever reason, I remembered Sir Cecil Creep, which was the Nashville host in the 70s and again in the 80s on the Nashville Network, which was a national show. But it was a local show in the 70s is what he's really known for here, best here. And that's kind of what I wanted to do, was sort of a tribute to Sir Cecil Creep, but of course my own thing. I didn't want to be son of Cecil or anything stupid like that. I just kind of wanted to do my thing. So I started my show in 1999. At some point within the first year or so, you reached out to me because you found my website and you wrote me and said, hey, I'm doing this thing. It was a weekly web program. I saw that you're doing a horror host show, and I just want to introduce myself. I didn't know about you. I had no idea. I was kind of surprised, and so you had me join this Yahoo group, and we started chatting on there and met some other folks. And in the meantime, I just kept doing my show on cable access, and then eventually moved that over to our local CW station, and then ran there for about a decade on CW, which was awesome because, they were providing movie package and everything. So that was fun. Got to host a lot of great movies. And now I'm running back on cable access because the guy I'm doing the show with now became the program director of the local cable access station. And it's been great because now, unlike when I was there before, it's not just on our local access channel. It's on there, but they also stream it on their website and on a Roku channel. Cool. Simultaneously. So really, it's just available to everybody in the world through the access station, which is really nice.
I understand there's something called the Neon Story. Would you like to relate that to us?
Sure, yeah. So what that's referring to is this really cool event that was actually the birth of the Horror Host Underground. It happened in Dayton, Ohio at the Ghastly All-Night Movie Marathon. It was a movie marathon at a theater called the Neon that A. Ghastly Ghoul hosted. And it was a gathering of a whole bunch of really cool horror hosts. I'd say really cool, including myself here, but a really, really fun event. Myself, Halloween Jack, Dr. Creep, A. Ghastly Ghoul, of course, Curtis Prather, the kid, what was his name? Freak. Dr. Freak. Thank you, Dr. Freak. Henrik has gone on to become a filmmaker and just done all kinds of great independent stuff. I interviewed him for Scary Monsters magazine not that long ago. But anyway, we all got together at this theater called the Neon, and they were showing movie marathons all night long. I was really happy because I got to meet Dr. Creep for the first time, which, legend. So anyway, this was, I think, in 2001, and all of us got together and, it was really fun meeting these other hosts face to face. And we all decided to start this Horror Host Underground, this tape trading network where we would get together and we would support each other and share ideas, which we were already doing online some, but also start sending tapes in and sort of self-syndicating each other into other markets. So it was a really fun event, a good time, and like I said, great meeting everybody.
What's your show called anyway?
The Ghastly Movie Show.
ghastly movie show. I like the arm with the vaudeville tombstone there. That's good.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I don't know if you noticed on there, it's actually the same stuff I've got on the hat. It was on the arm in there, but
yeah.
Bit of trivia nobody cares about.
Well,
anyway.
no, and you know, another other thing that you guys, the neat piece of trivia here is his jacket is reversible, very trendy. You know, this is a horror host trend here, and well, my jacket's reversible too. It's just white on both sides. Yeah.
Well, you know, you touched upon that Yahoo group, the Horror Host Underground. Mike, what was your first impression of meeting with finding out about these other hosts?
Well, it was kind of incredible because I felt very isolated being down here in Florida. I wasn't around anyone else who was doing this. Through that, I did discover some pretty amazing people like Crystal Guillory, who lived in New Orleans and was part of the New Orleans Worst Film Festival, who had us over. Our first live gig we ever did was introducing the movie Equinox at their festival, which was fantastic. And that was before our show had even aired. She had me over to do that. And of course you were there and other folks were there. And I met other people like, Joseph from Austin, Texas, who was Professor Griffin, yes. And then it led to, us going to Children's Theater, and I met A. Ghastly Ghoul, Bob Hinton, and Curtis Prather was there, and Halloween Jack Evan from up in New Jersey. And so all of these people that we were meeting, we were all coming together and meeting, and of course that group let us all talk to each other beforehand. So by the time you met these folks, you felt like you already knew them, and we would not only talk about shop, we talk shop like what kind of camera are you using, or what kind of, because back in those days it was like, it was very infancy of technology. To edit a show took me about a whole day generally to edit a show together, and then another day to render it out so that we could put it on the air. It was crazy. And then we had to record it to a 3/4 inch tape because our station couldn't take anything else. So it was a really long process. So I learned a lot of ways to cut corners and make it a little easier to do and things like that. So a lot of shop talk, but then also a lot of talk about like, hey, what's coming out at the movies this week? What are we interested in? Who's our favorite? What's the best PD movies we should be showing, or that kind of stuff. We all just talked and had a great time.
Yeah, I have to admit, when people would ask me back, probably in the same era, well, will there ever be a convention of horror hosts? And my answer was no. And they said, why? I said, because there's no building in the world big enough to handle all the egos.
Yes.
It turned out that there wasn't a problem, that we all had the same thing in common of hosting these sometimes good, mostly bad horror movies. But you mentioned something about the technology involved. I went down to visit Larry in the Nashville area, and I was waiting to see. I loved his show. I mean, I loved the sets and so forth. And I went to see how he was shooting this. And tell us about your setup at that time, Larry.
Yeah, at that time, we had moved to the new house, like I mentioned before, in Hendersonville, which we're just 20 minutes outside of Nashville. So, just barely outside. I had moved to this new house, met this guy, talked me into doing the show. When we got to the new house, there was a shed out back, just like a tool shed, but it's big. It was a big shed. And I said, this is it. This is my studio. So I just decided to turn that into a TV studio, built multiple sets in the same space, turn the camera one way, you got the lab, turn it the other way, you got a dungeon set. And I had about 3 sets going inside that little space. And people like Dick would come visit and be like, I cannot believe what you're doing in this little amount of space.
Greetings, Fright fans, and welcome to Creature Feature, the show where it's Halloween all year long. I'm Dr. Gangrene, physician of Fright, and tonight it's my pleasure to introduce to you a 1970s movie that's full of horror, atmosphere, and ascots.
So great to be in this group with other people who are doing this, to feel like, oh, we are connected to somebody. Because when you're doing a show on public access, sometimes it feels like you're just sending stuff out into the world for no one, because you don't hear from anyone, you don't talk to anyone. Occasionally if I would go to a restaurant or something and say, hey, I've seen you on TV or something like that, but it wasn't a lot of feedback, and so you just feel like, well, why am I doing this? But then you realize you're doing it because you love it. That's the only reason to do it. There's no getting rich out of being a horror host, that's for sure. But you do it because you love it. to his credit, the one person that I think that was really supportive, besides you guys, like you got Dick and some of the other, older hosts, Son of Ghoul, certainly, people like that, I think was Joe Bob Briggs, who actually, I met up with him at the drive-in in Atlanta, and he did segments for the show. He loved to talk to us, but the other folks, we never really hooked up with any of the bigger hosts that were going on at the time.
I just think it's natural that the folks, hosts with national platforms like Svengoolie or Joe Bob are going to get more attention. It just makes more sense. So, I never really took it personally or anything. It just is what it is. It's just the nature of the business.
I was thinking about this whole thing. I was fortunate in the fact that at least in the 70s, I was in a major market. But even then, I was very jealous of the folks in LA and New York and Chicago. And the reason I was jealous is because they had access to star guests.
Yeah.
And that was always, even in Washington, we didn't have a lot of big names coming through doing the promotional tours in DC. It's the 8th market. Nah. LA, New York, Chicago, and that was it. The most I had was the Penthouse Pets, which wasn't big.
Yeah, I don't hear any complaints.
No. Hey, but speaking about that, going beyond hosting horror, Mike, let's talk about, you went from horror host, which you still are, but then you picked up another small thing like convention entrepreneur. How did that come about?
Well, I've been going to conventions since I was in middle school. I went to them, and I'm just the kind of person that looks at things and goes, well, that works really good. That works really terribly. So when I'm at a convention, I'm like, they've got people standing in line over here. That's not the way they should be doing this. I'm always thinking about it in my head. And so in 2013, I just put it out on Facebook. I said, hey, I want to do just a one-day thing. We'll get a community center. I know a couple of guys who are comic book artists. I know a guy who was in the Return of Swamp Thing. Let's get him down here. Let's do a little show. And it just kind of took off. The first year, we expected about 3,000 to 5,000 people to show up based on what we were looking at. And we got 12,000 people to show up at Pensacon, the first Pensacon. And so since then it's grown. The second year it doubled in size to 24,000 people. And now we're up to close to 35,000 people a year come out and attend. It's so big that we've had to spread out over our entire city. We have 6 different venues that we go to. We're going to add more again. So yeah, it's just grown and grown and grown. But yeah, Pensacon's taken up my whole life. It's a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week, 365-day a year thing to book and get all these guests here every year.
So now I'm jealous of LA, New York, Chicago, and Pensacola.
Yeah. We've been a guest many times too, Dick, and we've always enjoyed having you at Pensacon.
It's a great convention. It really is. And to anyone who hasn't been there, it's awesome. I can't say it's a fan-friendly convention. That's the important thing. Okay, we've talked a lot about the past. What about the future? Larry, what are you into?
So I have my weekly show going. I've been probably, even with COVID going on, more busy than I have been in years. I've done 23 new shows and some reruns this year. So I've been cranking them out on the Access. But we also have a Dr. Gangrene feature film that we just wrapped up. We're going to have the world premiere at the Georgetown Drive-In in Georgetown, Indiana. It's called Dr. Gangrene's Tales from Parts Unknown. It's a horror anthology directed by Cameron McCaslin, my partner who I mentioned earlier, who's the Cable Access director. So this will be premiering there. We'll be showing it again at another drive-in in Franklin, Kentucky, the Franklin Drive-In. That'll be October 19th, I think it's the date. We're finalizing that. And then after that, it'll hit DVD and we'll make it available online, but we haven't worked those details out yet. But we're really excited.
Okay. Well, you kind of touched on some of this, Mike. What else do you have going for the future?
Well, we're adding a new station on Halloween night. It's going to be in Gainesville, Florida. So our show will be syndicated there. They'll get the episode of the Halloween special will be the first episode they get, and then they'll go back to season 1 and start airing that. Obviously, Pensacon will be next February 26th through 28th. A great lineup already announced. And the other thing that we're going to be announcing here soon is that Pensacon is going to be doing a Halloween fest. We're going to do an outdoor festival. We feel like people are a little scared of Halloween, not going around to other people's houses and things. So we're going to try to do a safe hand sanitizer, social distancing, masks, everything required. But we're going to do a Halloween fest and premiere our Halloween episode earlier that night on a large screen outdoors, so people can bring their blankets, be a part, and watch that. So that's what we've got coming up here soon.
That is so cool. I had never, what a great idea. How can people outside of those regions see your shows? Mike?
Well, we're on WSRE's YouTube channel. WSRE is our home station where we produce the show. If you go to their YouTube channel, you can find us. Just search for WSRE. There's both seasons of the show are up there and available for everyone to watch all over the world.
And Larry, how can people see your show?
So all the shows are archived on the NECAT, which is the station's website, necatnetwork.org. You click on the Arts channel link. Just go to the calendar, click which date you want to watch, and they're all available on demand.
I want to thank you both for coming out and sharing some of your memories about getting started in this business and continuing and staying in this business. Congratulations for, let's see, if I'm not mistaken, it's Dr. Gangrene's Sanitarium.
That's it. That's the new show.
Yeah. And Midnight Theater.
Nightmare Theater.
And so, and Pensacon, of course. Thank you both very much for taking time to share this with the horror fans, who are the people we do this for.
We got Arch coming up next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Arch Campbell, and look who's back!
Count Gore DeVol wishing you a happy Halloween.
Every time I talk to you, I always love to ask you, and you gave me a different answer every time, but I always love to ask.
Okay.
Where the name Count Gore DeVol came from, because I always associated it with Gore Vidal.
And so did he, and he was not happy about it at all.
Did you ever hear from him?
Not up front, but as the station representative occasionally to this cocktail party or that opening or whatever, I would hear from people around me that going, oh yeah, well, we saw him last week at a thing, and he said, yeah, he wasn't impressed, it wasn't funny and all this. But the fact of the matter is, I didn't know Gore Vidal from William F. Buckley. I mean, seriously. I never read any of his work. I was too busy trying to do a character. But here's the actual story. I mean, this is honest to goodness truth. And I've thought about how to present this so it made sense. I wanted to do the character. It was finally approved, but we needed a name. The general manager said we need a new name because I was going to use MT Graves, which was already being used in Miami.
Right, MT Graves.
So he said, the office was very small. I mean, there was like 3 feet between the front of the desk and the back wall. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking down at the general manager, and he's over there going, we need a name with some gore in it. And I said, well, that's simple, Count Gore. He goes, I like it. But it needs more.
Oh.
What do you mean? I go, what do you mean it needs more? And I was so frustrated. I just turned around. I was turning around looking at the wall. I said, how about something off the wall? Like, how about DeVol? And I turned back, and he's over there. Count Gore DeVol.
What was on the wall that said DeVol?
Nothing. It was just something off the wall, and I came up with DeVol. Now, where did I get this? Now, where did I get this? Now, this is the truth. Now, I don't know, because on his desk was a copy of Lincoln by Gore Vidal.
Really?
It was right there, but I'd never heard of the book or him. However, going to and from work every day.
Here it comes.
DeVol Funeral Home.
DeVol Funeral Home.
I don't know.
Later in life, I went to several funerals at DeVol's, and I always thought of you. In fact, I think you and I attended one together.
You bring up an interesting point. So I'm going to ask you a question. This is the Arch question.
Oh, is this Ask Arch?
Ask Arch.
Yes. Did Angus Lamond of Chevy Chase write in?
Chevy Chase sent in this one and says,
yes.
Hey, Arch, if you gave up your career early and decided instead to host horror movies, what would your character's name be?
I think I would go for Count Angus Lamond. Great Scottish Count Angus Lamond. And I'd have this Scottish castle. And then I'd open it up and crawl out of the dirt from Scotland. And I'd have a kilt. And maybe during each episode, someone would get killed. Angus Lamond.
Okay.
I don't think anybody could have come up with a better name than Count Gore DeVol. That's showbiz, mate. That's money. That's the best. I can't think of anything better than that.
And that's why when I walked out of his office, I went to my typewriter, I wrote up a letter that the station acknowledged that I created the character and I trademarked it, and they relinquished all rights to it. And they signed it.
Wow.
I pulled a George Lucas.
Smart guy.
Watching Dyszel at work is sort of like going back to television's early days, when stations were kind of little theaters where performers weren't afraid to try things, or even to fall flat on their face.
It's camp. You know, it's the old thing of it's something funny to laugh at. Even if they aren't scared of the movie, you can get a good laugh out of the thing.
Little blood myself out of my brand new Holly Farms Redskin mug.
Dyszel would go along with just about anything as host of certainly the wildest movie in town.
When they hit those home runs and all the rest of that stuff and get the baskets in, the field goes on that, I root for them all the way.
Hey, Arch, what was so unique and special about television in the 70s?
Yeah, exactly. What was it that made it possible for you to go on there as a horror host and do all the crazy, wacky things you did? And, you know, I started as a feature reporter on Channel 4 and down in Dallas. And prior to that, I trained a pet pig, a miniature pig, Spot the Pig, and I entered him in the solo dog food contest, the solo singing dog contest, and he won the thing because pigs scream when you pick them up in the air. And I did this whole series about my pet pig because the FDA had bred this miniature pig, and then they decided they didn't want him, and what will happen to them? Will they become pets? And I did things like that. I did these wacky stories. And I think the difference is back then, TV stations were willing, in fact, wanted to do the most unique things they could find. They wanted to take a chance. The more unique things they did, the better. And that was how one TV station was separated from another. It was by the performers and what they were doing. And over time, back in the 70s, like Channel 20, I think they owned one station. And whatever they could come up with, that was it. Over time, stations became big conglomerates, and it was better and more financially smart to stay safe than to take a chance and try something. We had the opportunity to fall on our face, and the viewers actually liked it.
Good afternoon, and welcome to Saturday Chiller. Tonight, our program director has scheduled another fantastic movie. Abbott and Costello Meet and Lose Rodin. I knew you would appreciate that.
Well, now we know where Dyszel is coming from. And while we're on the subject, Pete, I'd like to say that you really showed our viewers what gutsy reporting is all about.
Dick Dyszel, Count Gore DeVol here, and continuing looking at friends and horror hosts. And, you know, I thought we had to have some beauty in this. So I called my good friend, Marlena Midnite. Yes.
Hi.
So you run a show in the Quad Cities, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I've got a question.
Yep.
Quad Cities.
Yes.
Okay. This is a little area of the country between Iowa and Illinois.
Correct.
Right? Okay. Includes Davenport and Bettendorf, Iowa.
Yes.
Rock Island, Illinois.
Correct.
Moline, Illinois, and East Moline, Illinois.
Yes.
And that's 5. So how do you get quad?
You just smush the Molines together.
Mush the Molines together. Tell us a little bit about your show.
So in the Quad Cities, we are on channel WQAD 8, but it depends on if you are on satellite or if you have cable or if you're on an antenna. Also, we are on 8-3. The times can be found on our website, so you can go and look, because sometimes the times change depending on if there's football games or et cetera, et cetera.
So you have made it onto broadcast television, amongst other things, which that's kind of a cool thing.
So our studio's not as big as everyone thinks. We work really hard to like stretch it out and make it look really big and massive, but when you actually get in here, it's like, oh, it's a little claustrophobic with more than 3 people. So when we do invite people, a lot of times we're like, hey, you know, it's a smaller space, so if you have problems with smaller spaces, you might want to rethink this and just do it like via green screen.
You know, I should probably call somebody who's a legend in the horror host business. He's been around forever, and he was on TV for a very long time, and he's established and quite esteemed. I know, I'm gonna try to call Count Gore DeVol on the video televideo phone. Oh, look at these, they're so fancy! And they fit. Lovely. Count Gore DeVol? Hey, Count, can you hear me?
Godzilla, I got you. I love playing with my toy monsters. I love eating now. Oh, what are you doing? No. Toys. Oh, I love action figures. Hey, doesn't anyone knock anymore? Oh, it's you, Marlena. To what do I owe this surprise visit?
Hi, Count. Oh, well, I have a question. What are ratings?
Ratings is a 4-letter word, and even if it has more letters in it than 4. Ratings, a curse, the bane of our existence.
And we've been doing our show for around 11 years now, and we just keep going.
Well, tell us a little bit about how the show evolved. I mean, how did you become a horror host?
Honestly, we were just talking about it one day, and myself and the producer, we both really always liked horror hosts when we were growing up. We're different eras, so we had different horror hosts because also different areas. At that time, I was in Georgia, and we were just like, oh, we should do that. It'd just be fun and funny, and then it kind of blew up into this whole thing.
What do you like about it?
You get to be creative, and you get to basically kind of do your own thing. And if people make fun of you, it's not a big deal because it's supposed to be funny, and it's supposed to be kind of like, aha, this is stupid. Okay, this is awesome. So like, you don't ever feel bad when you have haters who come at you and they're like, your show is garbage. And you're like, that's what you got? Really? Okay. But I also really like that you're kind of in charge of your own decisions. I mean, sometimes, yeah, they're like, okay, that's too far. You've gone too far. But other than that, usually you're like, I'm going to do this. And they're like, great. So it's just kind of fun, and you can make skits, and nobody looks at you weird when you have friends who are puppets.
I understand that in addition to doing horror hosting, you've also been involved in a couple of horror movies.
Yes. We made one called Dawn of Dracula, and then we also made another one called Painkiller, which is still being processed because it's a mess. Some stuff happened with a couple of the people who were in the movie, and a lot of things changed in their lives. So we're like, we don't know how to approach this, but it is still in the works, and it will be done eventually. We just have to fit some pieces in.
So have you ever hosted Dawn of Dracula?
No, I have not. I we did the commentary, which is kind of like hosting, if you're like doing the MST3K version of hosting. We did have it shown at a drive-in though, which was kind of fun.
Ooh.
Like one of our friends used to work at a drive-in and he's like, can I show your movie on the big screen? I'm like, that's going to be weird, but yes.
Isn't it cool?
I was really big and I'm not very big in person. So it's kind of interesting.
I was going to say, isn't it cool the first time you see yourself on a big screen? I mean, it's just all awesome.
I think it depends on your personality. It was interesting for sure, but it just let me see all my like acting faux pas like really, really big. And I'm like, yep, I should have done that differently. It was like watching a sports reel of a football player, but like on a Jumbotron.
So now you've come about in an era with social media. So you have an idea looking at social media, who your audience is. So who when you get on the show, who do you envision you're addressing? Who's your audience?
It's mostly, okay, so it's our demographic's super weird. We have like middle-aged men, obviously, as you would expect, but also we have a ton of families with young kids, which is pretty neat. It's like an older generation who grew up with horror hosts, and then they have like kids who are between like 6 and 15, and they're like, check this out, and they drag their kids in, and their kids are like, this is stupid, but then by the end they're like, this is cool. So like they watch together as families, and that's really neat.
I have a question. A question just came in. If you could be any one of the characters in any of the movies that you've ever hosted, or if you would like Marlena to be in a movie, which character or which movie would you like to be in?
I honestly just want to be in Horror Hotel or the Dunwich Horror. I don't care which one, and I don't really care what person I am, even just a background person. I just want to be on those sets because the set design for both was just gigantic, and they like made whole villages for those movies just so they could have exactly what they wanted. And I'm leaning a little bit towards Dunwich Horror because of the house with the owl that just sits on their porch, and they have like all the sprays of like garlic and like dried food, and then you have that grand like staircase that goes up in 2 directions, and it's gorgeous. And I mean, I think I could be in a room with a monster. Like they could just put me in there with like the like Lovecraftian monster. I'm pretty sure I could room with one and not have a problem.
In a battle between you and a Lovecraftian monster, who would win?
The Lovecraftian monster, because I'm like 5'1.5" and like 100 some odd pounds. Oh. But I mean, it depends on what your definition of winning is. If it's like being possessed, I mean, am I really going to say no? Let's see what it's like to have tentacles. I don't know.
What do you see in the future? I mean, I haven't seen you in a long time. I should mention that I've met Marlena on the convention circuit.
Yes.
We go to a lot of conventions together, and she's always a blast to be around in the conventions. So but conventions are kind of right now out of vogue, so to say.
Necessary right now.
What do you envision for yourself as a character and yourself as an actress in the future?
Well, I'm not an actress, so we can kind of like take that off the table. I do my show and I like doing it, but it's kind of made for me so I can work around some disabilities that I have. But right now we're just kind of like stepping back and re-examining things and seeing how we can like change them and make them more fun. Our set obviously is a little bit different because we're in a different space now. And we have some new characters on the show, but they live far away, so they can't be on the show right now. So it's kind of like we're just in flux, just like everything right now. Like everything is so kind of up in the air and everybody has to adapt and pivot. And we're kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But speaking about pivoting, we're going to have to pivot and move on. I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us. And may all your endeavors in the future be absolutely horrible or horrific, or you enjoy horror, or you know what I mean.
Horror-tastic.
Horror-tastic. Thank you very much, Marlena Midnite.
Thank you so much.
But wait. Hey, I may have something that could help you. Many years ago, when faced with ratings on broadcast television, I developed a meter that allowed me to determine whether the audience was liking or disliking what I was doing. I could find out instantaneously whether they liked this joke or hated that joke, whether they liked this bad movie or liked this even worse movie. And it helped a lot. And in the last couple of years, I've been kind of miniaturizing and bringing it up to the 21st century. It's a digital operation, which is digital analog. Anyway, all that aside, and I could lend it to you.
Oh, that could be a lot of help.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have it around here someplace. I was packing it up. Let me look for it right now. I was packing it up because I need to apply for a patient. You know, so it's protected, you know, get a patient number. And it was around here in the box someplace. What did I do? Ah, there it is, there it is. Yeah, here it is. Let me see if everything is in here. Flux capacitor. Yes, it's all in here, and it's already in the box. I could send it to you right away, okay? Send it to the DredX office.
Thanks so much, Count. I really appreciate it. It's going to be a huge help.
And now we're going to talk with two of my favorite horror hosts, Dr. Sarcofiguy and dePest. Now, Dr. Sarcofiguy, of course, is played by John Dimes, who's kind of a Renaissance man, although he doesn't wear all those funny clothes from the Renaissance and all the rest of this stuff. And of course, dePest is played by the fine actress Leanna Chamish. And let's start with John, because John, I think, let's see, we met back in '99, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that is correct.
If I not mistaken. Is that correct?
No, you're not mistaken. No, you never mistake. No, that's correct. That's correct. You allowed me or us to have a clip during the ball dropping of New Year's Eve, I believe it was. It was I guess that's technically the turn of the century, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the Millennium Show. That's when Channel 20 invited me back after being ostracized and fired in '87 to bring in the new year. And then I obviously wanted to have my friends on the show. And
it was a fun show. I remember it being really fun. And I hate to use the word nostalgic, but it just felt great to see you back on Channel 20 again after all that time. So it was really fun to see it. Really fun to watch.
You know, it also allowed me to meet you and other people and bring this all together. Of course, you are we're more than just a horror host. I mean, let's face it. I mean, I was serious. Stand-up comedian.
Yeah, I've been funny on stage, yes.
Yeah, okay. You've done a bit of writing.
Yes. Lots of books. I would love to plug one, but I don't know if I'm allowed to do so. But what is it? That there are no bad movies, only bad audiences, which have started lots of conversations about, yes, there are bad movies, but, you know, whatever.
Where did Sarcofiguy come up? Come on.
Oh, well, like for instance, like a lot of people ask me, like, well, where did I get the voice from? And huh?
Well, you got to hear the voice. Give me your voice.
Well, whenever I do the voice, it's basically close to my own accent because, you know, most of the people in my family are from the South, and so, you know, I just basically just hammed it up more and adopted a little more of the arrogance of Foghorn Leghorn when I speak. You know, so whenever I speak, I hope that people feel they're going to be dipping their biscuits in honey eventually.
Okay, I do have to ask one question, though, because all of us, now none of us are in costume for this. Where did you come up with the fez? I mean, you and Dr. Who, Matt Smith and you, that's it.
The fez thing was like at the very last minute of the career. I mean, earlier on, I was going even more for that Southern doctor thing by having I had a straw hat, and then the straw hat sort of just limped back to being bald, and then the fez. One of my friends bought a fez with all this cheetah print all over it. I was like, oh, wow, I feel like a Shriner. I want it. I love it. So, you know, that's the fez. But most of the time I was just shades and just try my best not to sweat too much, and then the hat thing was like, Fez, traps sweat, awesome.
Well, speaking about now, you're celebrating your 25th anniversary, am I correct?
25 whole years. What was that? It started off as a show, was it Tales to Make You Say Goodness, then it led itself into, spooky movie and spooky movie television, all of that stuff. And I didn't expect that to really, I'm surprised that people like it, like the Southern Daughter, because most of the time people enjoy beings like yourself where they're vampires or they're werewolves or they're monsters of some kind, or somebody's a zombie in makeup. And I was surprised that people took to the idea of a guy just being fairly normal looking, bringing them, horror films. Because like I said, people love, you and the vampire. And I was like, well, awesome. Thank goodness people enjoy this.
Well, there's other things that people enjoy too, and that's looking at beautiful women. And 10 years ago, you added Boo dePest to the mix.
Yes.
By the fabulous, fantastic, beautiful Leanna Chamish.
Oh, yes, yes. And I had no idea she could ad-lib as well as she does. She is so damn funny.
Well, before you met her, I met her. And I'm going to go to Leanna right now. And Leanna, you want to explain to them how we met?
Oh, boy, you're going to make me blush. And now I get to tell the story of how I seduced you into our first meeting. Well, we were at a Balticon convention. I think it was about 1999. Mm-hmm. And I was very tired. I was laying on a couch in the lobby. You walked by in your vampire outfit. You were Count Gore, making a personal appearance and moderating events as you often do at those things. You look tired too. And I said, join me on the couch. You look tired. And you did. And we struck up a friendship, and the rest is history.
I mean, it's not very often that a beautiful woman says to me, hey, you want to lie down with me?
I'm not touching that.
It was in public, on a couch in the lobby, downtown Baltimore.
Actually, it was an interesting location because it was in the lobby, but they had this big staircase going up, and we were right under the staircase. And this was a couch, a couch that was 2 people wide. We have a picture of it someplace.
We do. Great memory. And I'm so glad that we got into a talk about our respective careers in broadcasting. And then that led to a lot of collaborations.
Yes. As a matter of fact, for a long time, Leanna was the videographer for the Count at conventions. She would go around and she would be my person behind the camera. And it was incredible. I could get any guy in the room to get an interview with as long as she asked.
Yeah, well, I was usually wearing a vinyl mini skirt. That seemed to help.
Yeah, that didn't hurt. Not a bit. After you stopped doing this, I stopped really getting interviews very much because it was like, yeah, why would I want to talk to you, buddy?
Well, when the pandemic's over, we'll try it again.
Yeah. All right. How did you get involved with Dr. Sarcofiguy? Yeah.
Well, the producer of the show, who does not want to be named, apparently, gave me a call and asked me to get involved. And I'm forever grateful because working with John is a pure joy. He is just so funny and so handsome. And when the producer explained to me that my character was like the ultimate fangirl for Dr. Sarcofiguy, and all I had to do was fawn over him and try to get with him all the time, it was just so easy. Because
I have to admit, John, the Count was a little bit jealous of her fawning over you, but that's okay.
Get ready and pose, and okay, I need to go to your right. And go to your left. No, that's just not working either. Okay, go back. My Zoom's not working. Go forward.
I think the name Budapest just came up right then and there on the spot, didn't it? did you just came up? You just came up with the name. It was like, come up with a name, and you was like, boo, dePest. I'm like, ha, perfect.
Well, that was because the producer told me I was going to basically pester you all the time.
Yes.
So the character needed a name, and she's a pest. And I was trying to think of scary things, but the word boo.
So you took the country and turned it into a great name.
Boo, dePest. There we are.
John, how did you come up with the name Sarcofiguy?
I usually try to have like a whole stable of names just in the back of my mind anyway, just because when I'm writing something stupid, I just like to have some ridiculous, like I could have easily have been Professor Kareem Otorium, an Irish, you know, exactly, like an Arab Irish guy, Kareem Otorium. But Sarcofiguy, I just, you know, at the time, I think I was probably going to do an Egyptian number. And so anyway, I was just, I just wanted to have that name, Sarcofiguy.
So you brought up the subject of costuming. How is Boo dePest? How did she come up with her costuming?
Well, Dick, if you recall that when I was a videographer for you going around conventions, I had that blue velvet dress. So it was something already in my wardrobe. I didn't have to go shopping. And I think I actually bought that at a Baltimore sex shop.
No wonder it looks so good on you.
I did not know that. Because I remember you having that dress. I had no clue. Oh, my God, woman. My God.
It's kind of
this whole time?
Something nice, I buy it. It's in the repertoire of outfits. And that one worked out for Boo. It had the nice batwing sleeves.
If I had known you had got that thing from a sex shop, oh my God, we could have plundered that joke for days.
One of the tamer things at the shop, but that's how I got it.
You know, speaking of plundering, there was a time when I joined you guys as the Count on the set. And if I'm not mistaken, we were kind of done shooting, and John, you were sitting in the front seat.
Yes, I knew you were going to bring that up.
Leanna behind you in the back seat. And then you pointed up, when you're ad-libbing, you know, you just take something and run with it. And I think we've called this when horror hosts go wild.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Yeah, it was like a 1-minute promo for a movie. Definitely got out of hand.
It doesn't even, did we even know what the movie, it was one of those kind of moments where it's like, what is that for? What was that a promo for? Nobody knows anymore.
But I think we ought to share that with everyone right now.
Greetings, I'm the Count Gore DeVol, and with me this week we have Dr. Sarcofiguy.
Hello, and this is Boo dePest. She's Boo. Yes. Yes, she has a couple of very interesting features too. Dr. Sarcofiguy's new show.
Did you say pretty interesting features? Yes. What features are you featuring? What are you talking about?
The great movies at your show.
Oh, that's what I thought you meant. Because I knew where you go with some of your stuff. You filthy. He works filthy. He's
well, if you want to find out more about the spooky movie TV show showing all over Northern Virginia and actually see an example, no, you are not going to see an example, but actually see them co-host my movie, The Horror of Spider Island, this week, all you've got to do is go over to my web program at www. You ready for this altogether?
CountGore.com!
And you'll see us all there. So don't miss it. It's vac.
It's vac. It's absolutely vac. It's just like ACT. It was ACDC back in vac. Hit the sack. Don't get the feedback. Okay, I'm relevant. Oh, you're making me blush. You can see, my palms are getting red. Because we're trying to keep it above board.
Tries, I'm doing my best to avoid it. And she's helping me. It's a losing proposition, 2 against 1. He doesn't stand it.
Too much time in that coffin, just thinking filthy things.
Yeah, but look what I'm looking.
Edit it down. They'll never know the difference. They'll think we're good people. And when you finally die, you'll go to heaven. Because he's a vampire. Who knows when they're going to die?
Here, you take this.
I'll take this.
I'm gonna go find out.
He's gonna find out if she's alive or not. Oh, Lord. Well, I know if it, oh, Lord have mercy. I think he's gonna bore her to death. Oh, she's being gored. Lord, give her. Oh, Lord. Oh, you don't know what to go to. Why don't you go where fashion sits?
She's alive.
She's alive?
Yes.
Oh, my God. I hope you don't have little vampire babies. Lord have mercy. That's just filthy. I didn't sign on for this.
You should take some notes.
I should take some notes. Lord, I don't even want to touch the pencil.
www.countgore.com. It's all there.
It's all there.
Everything.
Oh, my goodness. Can I say that I'm blushing again?
Okay, that was fun. Perfectly innocent.
I remember doing that. It was fun to think of creative ways to stick up my arms and legs and look funny.
And all I could do is just sound like Medea going, my Lord, Lord have mercy, Lord. Waiting for the lightning to strike all 3 of us.
Well, fortunately, we had no lightning. But that's okay. Hey, we got some questions, audience questions sent in from the far-flung corners of the world, which is always difficult since the world is round, but that's okay. We can make this work. So I'm going to ask Leanna, and this is a question more from the actress standpoint. When you were doing Boo, did you prefer ad-libbing or would you have preferred script?
Wow, I think it's a combination of both because the producer would always give us an outline of where the scene was headed. So there were always some guidelines and a goal that had to be accomplished. But within that, we could improvise. And that was so much fun. And that's where bouncing off John and great jokes came from. And the only time I think we were truly scripted is the time we had to switch bodies. And therefore, our voices had to be coming out of each other's mouths. And so we had to know what the lips should be doing. But other than that, we just knew what we had to do. And I think we were very creative getting there, ad-libbing our way. And I enjoyed that structure.
Okay. We will not talk about the body switching right now, although I'm half tempted.
It was a good episode.
I now know what it's like to be Dr. Sarcofiguy.
A stalker's dream, I bet.
Well, sort of. But without having to resort to making a fat girl suit out of you.
Say!
And I finally got confirmation.
Confirmation? Oh, what?
Oh, you know.
You're not talking about what I think you're talking about.
Oh, indeed. During the last movie break, I had a look.
A look?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Oh, yes, I did.
You devil child.
Well, I needed to see for myself if the myth was true.
Stop that madness. I feel so violated.
Oh, don't worry. I couldn't see anything over this. Well,
another fat joke.
Maybe.
Share with me, how do you put yourself as an actor in that mindset of, okay, I'm no longer myself, I'm John or I'm Leanna. How do you do it? John, why don't you start with that?
Well, basically, it was easy to play. It's easy to play somebody. Okay, if you're watching somebody for a long period of time, that part is awesome. The trick is making sure that the person that you're impersonating has a good sense of humor about themselves, which she does.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sarcofiguy. You've just finished watching Night of the Hell Hamsters.
No, you're not. You're Budapest in my body. But not for long, because that last movie gave me an idea of how to get you out of there.
Ooh, you have a Ouija board. Perfect. We'll do a seance.
We don't have time for a seance. Get
Ow!
out
Woo!
of
Ouch!
my
Woo!
body,
Oh.
devil child. The power sarcophagi compels you. The power sarcophagi compels you. The power sarcophagi compels you. The power sarcophagi... No, stop it!
Oh, I'm so sorry, sweetie. Are you okay?
Yes, I'm all right. A little sore, but I'm all right.
Oh, look at this. I'm back in my body, and you're back in yours.
Oh, yes, we are.
Oh, but don't you worry, Dr. Sarcophagus, sweetie. If we ever want to experiment again, you're always welcome inside of me.
Oh, you are so filthy. Get away from me, devil child. Oh, you're embarrassing me.
Well, it's just that I'd do anything for science.
Oh, I bet you would.
It was a good time. That was a good episode.
Wonderful. Now, here's another question sent in from the far, not so far corner, okay? Have you guys ever been recognized in public out of character as the character?
I'm curious about, I want to hear Boo. So what did you say, Boo? What Leanna?
No one's ever recognized me out of character.
Really?
Fine. Maybe at some of the spooky movie film festivals, people may have realized that because there were also the promos up on screen sometimes that featured. But that could be explained by the nearness and time of seeing a promo, and there I am.
Right.
Other than that, no.
The one time I was recognized, they were very timid. They were like timid woodland creatures, and I was surprised that they were like, "Are you?" And I was like, "Ooh, I feel like Mean Joe Green, giving somebody a soda, you know." And then the other time, they had seen me when I was more or less in drag on one episode, and they weren't sure if I was serious about being a drag performer. And I'm like, no, that was a joke. And the whole time they were looking at me like, "Are you sure you were?" No, I'm not a drag performer. That was just one episode. And that was it. Those couple of times at conventions, things like that.
Well, I want to congratulate John for your 25 years of Dr. Sarcophagi.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Congratulate Leanna on her 10 years as Budapest. Thank you. I want to congratulate both of you for being such wonderful friends. Thank you very much. You've been...
Thank you for taking me into the horror host community and being such wonderful performers and sharing the stage with me. And it's been a great ride.
Thank you, Dick, for taking me into your bosoms and yours too, Leanna.
So if this were real life, we'd do a big group hug, but otherwise we'll just...
Oh, no. I look like I Dream of Jeannie right now. I'm sorry.
Cover your name. Well, we're back with Arch Campbell, media critic at large or small.
At large, right. At large. What are you gonna? Don't you have a 50th anniversary coming up?
You had to mention that, didn't you? Yeah.
How will you celebrate your 50th anniversary?
Well, it all depends whether or not we're outside this pandemic. The anniversary, the specific date will be February 3rd, 2023.
Oh, wow. That's soon.
So we have a chance to get a vaccine and get people, up to snuff, and we can maybe get back together again. But that brings up a good question. I mean, I would like to have another gathering like we did for the 40th anniversary, which was at the AFI, and fill the theater, show a great movie, have you there with me, help co-host it.
I was always impressed with those screenings that you hosted at the AFI. That you filled the theater every night, and it was one of the best viewing experiences I can remember. And I remember the nights you showed Young Frankenstein. I've never heard such laughter and never seen an audience have quite as much fun as that. And then some of the other ones you showed, The Thing, which, is extremely funky. People were laughing at it.
Double feature, we showed both of them. Hey, show me both your things.
Leave your thing out of this.
But and of course, this pandemic has just killed that. I mean, we weren't able to do anything in 2020. I mean, we just had to cancel them all because the theaters are closed and no one, so it was like, so hopefully by 2023, we'll be able to do this again.
What would you like to do next?
What would I like to do next? Well, I want to keep doing the web program, obviously. I want my Roku channel going, Count Gore DeVol Presents. I would like to do. I'm thinking. Now we didn't get to show The Shining yet because of the. I wouldn't mind doing The Shining for my 50th anniversary. That might be. That's a good movie.
That's
scary.
That's cool. That's cool.
So we can leave it at that. Yeah.
The Exorcist. Didn't you show The Exorcist one night?
Yeah. No, we did. We did show The Exorcist. Yeah, and that movie surprised me. It held up remarkably well.
And how about, did you ever show Rosemary's Baby?
No.
I'd love to see that again. I remember watching that in 1968 or 9, and it just scaring the willies out of me. That would, there's so many. And of course, it was always so great to be in that AFI theater.
Oh, yeah.
Big theater that.
But let me turn the thing back to you. We talked about what I would like to do. What's on your plate here? Your
vegetables, broccoli.
Good for you.
These days, I do a podcast with Jen Chaney, who reviews movies on WTOP and writes for Vulture.com, which is the website of New York Magazine. And we review stuff that we see on cable and streaming. And I have seen a lot of really good stuff on cable. So basically, I've kind of transferred my reviews to what's streaming. And I'm doing some writing. I'm trying to write a book about my career, and I'm trying to write a book about growing up in Texas. So look for it soon. That's just what the world needs, another book.
Coming to a Kindle near you, right?
Yes.
Well, Arch, I want to thank you very much for being here with me on this event here. And it's been a blast. It's always fun.
Dick, you're one of my favorite guys. This has been so good just to visit with you again. You know, you and I, we go way back, don't we? We go back to 1975.
Yeah.
And I have always admired the way you've kept Count Gore alive.
You can't kill a vampire. Steady Count.
Drive a stake through his heart.
T-bone. Yeah. Actually, I prefer fillets, so they're not dangerous.
Thank you very much, Arch, and thank you very much for being with us. I want to thank also, well, let's see, John Dimes, Leanna Chamish, Larry Underwood, Mike Ensley, and Marlena Midnite for being with us. And as Count Gore DeVol would say, may all your blood be warm!
Listen, Dick, Count, however you go, it's really been good being here, and I appreciate you.
It's been a pleasure to have you here, and before you go, would you like to try on my custom-made coffin? It's really very comfortable.
Gee, I don't know.
Oh, go ahead, just go in. Your audience would love it. Just
get in like this?
Yeah, just get in, stretch out there.
Ever get scared in here?
It's comfortable satin line. Hey, how do you feel? You really
This is not bad.
You really like it, huh?
It's fine.
Good, you're stuck there. And for Arch Campbell, this is Gore DeVol, and good night for NBC News. Stay there.
Don't be afraid, Arch will return.
So like, how was that, Mr. Prather?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I was.
Yay! Wasn't paying attention.